Good afternoon. My name is Edward Cato Sanchin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest here at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're an affiliate of Empty Moon Zen. Law school, at least 40 years ago, required a course in criminal law of its first-year students. We used a casebook by a man named Lefebvre, and the opening chapters dealt with intention, an important concept in Anglo-American criminal law. The various initial cases, all appeals court opinions, danced around situations that, frankly, strained credulity, all in an effort to illuminate what we mean when we say that someone intended to do something, usually nefarious. I won't trouble you with some of the more ghastly stories, but here's a relatively innocent one. Relatively. As an illustration. It seems that two men were out on a camping trip when one of them became aware that his companion planned his murder. He filled his sleeping bag with clothing to give the appearance of being wrapped up, sound asleep, and then he waited outside his tent. His companion, late at night, snuck into the tent and proceeded to repeatedly stab the empty sleeping bag. The question before the court, which assumed those facts to be true, however incredulous that might seem, the question was intent alone sufficient for a conviction of attempted murder when the underlying crime, murder, was impossible? You cannot, after all, kill an empty sleeping bag. So intent, the formulated desire to accomplish a specific task, has an important place in the common law, so much so that intent may be inferred from a reasonable expectation of the consequences of an action. You cannot evade a charge of murder if you spray an automatic weapon into a crowd, even if you did not specifically want to kill any one of them. But I'm not here to talk about that law, or rather, I'm not here to talk about Anglo-American jurisprudence. The law I'm interested in is the Dharma, and more to the point, karma. A couple of weeks ago I talked about cause and effect, and I have to admit, they're the aspect of karma I'm most comfortable with. I drop a book on the floor, and the cat scrambles out of the room at the sound. I neglect to pay a bill on time and spend an afternoon picking up the pieces. I can see these. I can feel them in my bones. Cause and effect make sense to me, even if it takes work to tease out the path they take. The chain that moves forward into the future, the infinite causes that move out of the past to culminate in our present circumstances. But karma requires more than simple cause and effect. There must be intent. And this has long been a sticking point for me, just as it was back in my law school days. And here's my problem. If we're the sum total of those myriad causes impinging upon us, if that is what makes us who and what we are, then where is there room for free will, for intent? This is not to say, with that French physicist Laplace, that if you give me the position and velocity of every particle in the universe, I could tell you everything about the future. That all you need to know about all the causes and conditions of each one of us, that then you could say what each one of us would do, that what we would do would be inevitable, beyond our control. And yes, I have to believe that there is no such control, no such intent, even if the causes are so numerous that we could never predict how we would act. And what does this say about both free will and about karma? And this is not limited to pondering the Dharma. The experimental psychologist Benjamin Libet famously performed a series of experiments over 40 years ago that suggest, amid a fair amount of controversy, that the subconscious mind, the brain, the physical brain itself, anticipates our conscious formulation of intent, leading one to wonder if consciousness itself is not simply an add-on, an afterthought. I was mulling this over when the 5 remembrances came to me. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. Yes, my deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. My deeds, I am. Here is a clear setting out of karma. My intention, my will, my deeds. This is what I am. And I am of the nature to grow old, to have ill health, to die. And what is this I, this me? Just what is it that has the nature to grow old, to get sick, to die? What is it that enjoys the fruits of all those deeds? Look close. Turn the light within. Dogen tells us that to study the way is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self. Peel back all those layers, and there is no there. Intention and free will reveal themselves like that self, that ego, to be fictions. We both chant, I am of the nature to grow old, and we chant in the Heart Sutra, Shariputra, all things are essentially empty, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain, and so on to old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death. This I that grows old, sickens and dies, this I that is the beneficiaries of my deeds, this I is a fiction. This intent is a fiction. This free will is a fiction. And yet they seem so real. I get out of bed in the morning, I put on the coffee, I say good morning to my wife. I, this fiction, act with intentionality, or so it seems. Is karma then an illusion? Do we free ourselves when we realize that our self is a fiction? We live in the form world with that self, that personal responsibility. If the self is an illusion, though a useful one, if intent and free will are also useful, perhaps necessary illusions, what then is karma? Is it perhaps only a fiction? Can I still call myself a Buddhist if I question something so fundamental to Buddhism? I've always admired Jews for their willingness to argue with their God. Perhaps the Dharma will allow me a little argumentation. Hecho built 100 carts. If you remove the wheels and the axle, what is vividly apparent? If you remove self and intent, what about karma? What about Buddhism is vividly apparent? Just this.